Funding for this program was made possible by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation.
The people who live here call this place a colonia, a Spanish word for neighborhood. There are no addresses, and the streets have no names. This neighborhood doesn't exist on any city or state map, but it is home to the poorest of Americans.
When I first met these families and I saw the conditions they were living in, they broke my heart. I never in my life could have fathomed that families or that even one single person could have ever lived in these conditions.
We have fundamental human needs. Those are water, decent housing, food, health services, etc. The folks in the Colonia, in the richest country in the world, do not have that.
Unlike most American neighborhoods, colonias usually lack water, electricity, and paved streets.
We were told that there was an area in which children were getting diseases that are produced usually by contaminated water. Went out to get it investigated, and I was shocked to know that the conditions these people lived in were appalling. And I refer to this area of our country as the other America. And in Texas, I call it the Forgotten Texas.
This should not happen here at all. Every child here should have the opportunity that every child has in New York, in Connecticut, wherever, because this is the United States.
People don't know what you're talking about when they talk about colonias. I mean, if I go to California or go to Washington, D.C., unless you explain what they are, they don't know what you're talking about, okay? Now, if you talked about the fact that there are over 500,000 people, okay, who live in, you know, in third world conditions, who live without water, without sewer, then it registers. Then people are outraged and say, how could this be possible in the United States of America?
This is the story of the people of the colonias, about their struggle to survive and about their search for the American dream. The Texas border area is one of the fastest growing regions in the United States. Almost 2 million people live here. NAFTA has made Mexico the United States' second largest trading partner, sparking an economic boom. All along the border, from El Paso to Brownsville, the signs of prosperity are everywhere. But the economic boom has not touched the lives of those who have historically been at the bottom of the wage scale, the people of the colonias.
The colonias along the border is an ignored area, because I myself have been up and down the border, and the conditions are the same. The owners are different, but the problems are exactly the same.
There are about 1,500 colonias along the U.S.-Mexico border. Developed outside the city limits because the land was cheap, there was little or no enforcement of zoning regulations. Housing ranges from mobile homes, wood and cinder block structures, to makeshift dwellings built by the owners. A few colonias can be found in California and New Mexico, but the vast majority are here, along the Texas-Mexico border.
In Texas, we have this attitude that, you know, that we've always, frankly, there's been a lot of real estate interest. We've been able to prevent the state legislature from ever regulating, you know, development outside the city limits. So you have these whole kind of no man's lands, okay?
Over 500,000 people in the United States live in colonias that are given names such as Expressway Heights, Cameron Park, and Green Valley Farms. Colonia residents build their homes with whatever they can afford. The roof of this house leaks when it rains, and the floor is caving in. To make more room for her family of 8, Maria Perez and her husband attached an old trailer to their 2-room house. Now they have a kitchen.
It's an issue of poverty. That's the reason why they're in the colonia. You basically have poor people. When I say poor, I'm talking about very, very poor. You're talking about people who make $3,000, $5,000, $6,000 a year. That's your family income for the year.
The best way to describe a lot of what exists in the colonias is to take it home to some other parts of the country, like the Mississippi Delta or the Native American lands and the living conditions that they have to endure, or the Appalachian Mountains and the residents of those areas. But truly, because of the growth of the population along the U.S.-Mexico border, have created even worse conditions in many situations.
These are families who would do anything to have a home, for their children. And they want a safe place. They're willing to make sacrifices, like to live without water or to haul water or to pay exorbitant prices for water.
This colonia is called Sunny Skies. With no running water, the entire neighborhood relies on this one spigot by the side of the road.
We all get water from here. All of us are connected to this. The pipe goes through here, and all the houses in the neighborhood are connected. It's just a 1-inch pipe. We get one bill, and we all pay for it.
On their own, the residents of Sunny Skies illegally connected pipes to their only water source. But the plumbing is unreliable, and they have to keep water barrels on hand. As migrant farm workers, the Hurtado family was the first to buy a lot here over 20 years ago. With their own hands, they slowly are building a new house and add to it after each harvest. They live in a 2-room house that sits behind their new creation.
They start building their dream home. And they may start out with just a small room, and then they'll start working on the roof. As soon as they can, they move in. The average colonial home takes between 5 and 7 years to completely build. Somehow the magic and the miracle occurs that the house begins to take shape and it begins to look like a house. And little by little, they say, this is my home. This is more than just blocks. This is who they are. This is their investment.
If you go to our communities, if you go to the downtown area, you don't see homeless people. We don't have what is normally a chronic problem in the urban areas, which is homeless people. People will not allow their families to go homeless under any circumstances, and what they do is they go and they buy these little tracts of land, these little lots, and they'll put whatever they can to put a roof over the heads of their family.
Colonias date back to the 1950s. They were developed on the most undesirable plots of land, initially built as temporary shelter for migrant farm workers.
From 1950 on, the standard for the U.S. have increased tremendously, and we have much better housing, but it really hasn't improved for colonias. It's been kind of, things have stayed the same.
Even though the living conditions were bad, the critical need for affordable housing fueled the growth of colonias.
These colonias sprung up all over the place because counties didn't regulate them. They didn't prevent people from doing it.
There was a window of opportunity that created a loophole for many property owners to be able to subdivide their property without actually platting them. And it created a situation for unscrupulous developers and landowners to take advantage of some of the poorest residents that we have in our state.
You know, the way they said it so beautiful, say the people, want to buy,
From the mid-70s on, tens of thousands of lots were sold at low prices, with promises that basic services like water and electricity would eventually be provided. Developers found a steady stream of customers eager to buy into the American dream.
A developer would buy, let's say, 10 acres of land, essentially cut it up without really filing it or really calling it a subdivision, without putting roads or water or electricity, any of the traditional things that we associate with the community. This person would say to you, give me $100 and you pay me $50 a month or $25 a month. To the people, that represented an opportunity that was not available to them anywhere.
Land developers provided an easy alternative to low-income housing. The lots are financed under a contract for deed, which is a rent-to-own form of ownership. Because there was no legal record, the deed to the property had no value.
They see that they have a need, they see that they're anxious, that they really want something, so, you know, what more can, you know, how much better of a deal can you give them than just give me $100 or $500, and you know what, you've got a land, you're starting to buy on it, you know. Unfortunately, a lot of these families don't know that contract for deed means that it's literally not yours. You're just paying on something. You miss one payment and you're out.
When Amalia bought land in a colonia called Frank and Anita Estates, she was told that water would come soon.
When he first advertised, he advertised that when they came here, they would be getting their services in a very short time span. It's been over 20 years, since 1983, they're still waiting for the services.
We wash dishes with this water. We cook with it and we drink it. We also use this water for the bathroom. I heat this water for us to take a bath in. This water is used for everything, even for the dog.
Next door, Frank Martinez poured his life savings into building a home for his family. He built his own water well, only to find out it was of little use.
What I can say good about this water is that it's wet. That's about it. You can't use it for drinking. You can't wash white clothes with it. It'll stain clothes pretty bad. Plus, it'll stain your commode. It'll stain your shower. It'll eat up the faucets pretty bad. It'll clog up all these small lines. You can see the rust, the hardness of the water. The faucets with the water, they get eroded, as you can see. They're not chrome anymore.
Frank has paid a huge price for living here. Every 2 years, he has to replace the water fixtures of the entire house.
If I try and sell it, you know, nobody in their right mind here would pay what I have put into this house because I have no services, you know. So I'm stuck here.
When the residents of Mile 4 Colonia tried to connect to city water, they discovered that Mile 4 didn't exist.
This area here is known as a gray area because I've seen an actual map and it's just a big square. It's a gray area. And all because it was never platted.
Because the developers didn't legally plat the land, the city refuses to provide water. So the residents are forced to tap into city water illegally.
It's just a 3/4-inch pipe for 3 houses.
And we're not the only ones that are hooked up like that. There's
Everybody's hooked up that same way, and all the neighbors over here are hooked up the same way, from that road this way. So all these houses are hooked up the same way.
Mm-hmm. And it's not like if nobody knows that it's going on, they know it's going on.
For the Perez family, their daily routine revolves around the availability of water.
We kind of all know what time we wake up and when somebody gets home, you know, it's like, oh, okay, well, so-and-so's home, you know, so-and-so is home, you know, give them respect. They're here. We were here before them, so either you take a bath before them or you take a bath later on at night when you know they're not taking a bath. Because you'll feel it. You'll be in the shower and all of a sudden you're just
got this
small it's like, drip. Oh, okay.
Either get out or
just wait.
Or keep with it, you know, and then somebody will know that the water's being used.
This colonia is called Sparks. The people who bought here were lured by the low price of land and didn't know they'd been sold property on a 100-year floodplain.
When we bought here 10 years ago, we thought we had made a great investment.
Residents were shocked when a heavy rain turned their small creek into a raging river, as captured on this home video.
The water took all of this, everything up to here. It took everything.
Even trying to escape the waters can have dire consequences for residents. Flooding poses a major threat for over 90% of Colonias. Numerous drownings have been reported along the border area of Texas.
Eddie, call 911, hurry!
From the back of my house, I was trying to see if the person would go by to somehow help him, but I never saw him pass by. I realized that he was being carried underwater by the current.
Call 911!
I've seen flooding before, but not like this. This was something incredible.
Miraculously, both occupants of the car escape with their lives.
It's at the point now that I'm afraid. You have to look carefully at where your lot is and what the conditions are like. It's very risky to buy without really knowing what you're getting into.
Rosie de Leja lives in a colonia called Green Valley Farms. 5 years ago, she bought land here and moved her mobile home.
They had signs, for sale signs, and I just called that number, and you know, it was an affordable price. Now I know why.
Unknown to Rosie, Green Valley Farms was built on a dried-out lake bed.
I knew nothing about it flooding or anything. It was a big surprise. We have septic tanks that get over-flooded, and this is very hazardous to the children's health, to our health. The animals die, and they have to stay around until the health department is able to get in, because nobody can get in or get out.
The residents of Green Valley Farms have been evacuated twice in the last 5 years. They live in constant fear of rain.
The road gets, impossible, very muddy, but you learn to navigate when you live here. But people will not risk it. Nobody will come here. As you can see, just the little rain that was last night, and you can already see the puddles. If it rained like this 2 days in a row, then you really see the difference. There's water everywhere. And here, the water right here, it can get up to here.
I was getting myself prepared that maybe I was gonna have to go out again. And for my son also, If it was just me, well, but my son he's 7 years old, so we've got to get out.
Mira, a veces sacamos los muebles con los tractores.